The day has finally come. For the longest time, I've always wanted to have a proper OLED gaming monitor, and while I've used an OLED panel in the past with the 42-inch LG C2 OLED TV as my main gaming and productivity monitor, it was less than ideal to say the least, because of its size and all of its shortcomings. And to give you an idea, before this, I was using the EVE Spectrum 4K 144Hz gaming monitor, which is awesome at least as a product itself, but in my opinion, nothing beats the superior image quality of an OLED panel. So in today's video, I'm excited to switch to the new ROG Strix OLED XG27AQDMG, which is the world's first glossy WOLED gaming monitor. The ROG Strix OLED XG27AQDMG features a 27-inch 1440p glossy WOLED panel with up to 240Hz refresh rate, 0.03 milliseconds response time, true 10-bit color depth, 99% DCI-P3 color accuracy, NVIDIA G-Sync compatible, and VESA Display HDR 400 certified. It essentially checks all my boxes. The design and construction, while may look familiar, is still pretty solid and convenient, especially with a very versatile support base and stand that offers a ton of adjustments. But yeah, everything it has to offer is highlighted by the amazing image quality of its OLED panel, partnered with its competitive gaming capabilities. With that said, let me share with you all my thoughts about it. Let's get into it. As always, honest disclaimer, this video is not paid, but ROG Philippines did send an early review sample for me to experience, and I also get to keep it just for full transparency. But they will not review this video before release, and they'll see this video at the same time as you do. So yeah, this is going to be a proper review, and rest assured that I'll share with you my honest thoughts. But let me say this. The ROG Strix OLED XG27AQDMG is probably one of the best reasonably priced 27-inch 1440p OLED gaming monitor right now. It has a good balance between superb image quality, features, and price. So sit back and relax and watch the entire video. With that said, let's start with a quick unboxing experience. It came in a sustainable brown box with some branding and key specifications around it. As expected, the panel is sandwiched between two massive styrofoam with all the components nicely tucked inside. Inside the box, we have an ASUS VIP member notice, a couple of energy rating stickers, a couple more paperwork including the user guide, and of course a set of RG stickers, the 120 watts external power brick and its cable, two cables actually. Then we have the VESA mounting adapter, which makes mounting and unmounting the monitor to an arm super easy and convenient. Next, we have the robust support bar made out of a combination of plastic and aluminum, and a newly designed base also made using the same materials. We also have this mesh pouch that houses all the cables, all of which are nicely packed with plastic packaging. So we have a DisplayPort cable, an HDMI cable, a USB 3.2 cable for the built-in hub, and a microfiber cloth, which is a nice touch. Assembling the support bar and base cannot get easier than this. All you have to do is line up the support bar like so and snap it in place. Removing it is super easy as well, as you can tell. Next, insert the support base and secure it using its integrated screw, by hand or with a screwdriver. And that's about it. At first look, even with its plastic cover, there's no denying the fact that the new glossy panel is indeed reflective. More on that later, but first, peel time! Now, before we head into a more technical part of the review, let's take a look around the ROG Strix OLED XG27AQDMG first. The most notable feature of this gaming monitor is of course the glossy WOLED panel. While there are already existing glossy panels out in the market, this is the first one for the OLED gaming monitor market space. It comes with its own pros and cons, which we'll discuss in detail later. Here in front, as you can tell, we have slim bezels, though as usual, when turned on, it still has some noticeable borders around. Luckily, the bezel up top is decent enough for my monitor slide bar mount. Now, I don't know how I feel about the ROG logo at the bottom center. Honestly, I'm not a fan of it, but at least you can turn the illumination off if you want. What I like on the other hand is the space saver base compared to the typical V-shaped base of the ROG Swift lineup. This doesn't stick out too much and doesn't get in the way of your extended desk mat. It also has an integrated smartphone stand, which is a nice touch. I also like the fact that the panel itself is extremely thin thanks to the nature of the OLED panel. This is noticeable especially when looking at it from a certain angle. We still have a relatively large component box though, with a custom heatsink inside, but overall, it looks really good. At the back, we have the super versatile support bar, and it also has a 1/4-inch thread up top for mounting things like LED lights, camera, and what have you. And of course, it also has a cable management hole at the bottom. Like I said, we still have a relatively large component box with a decent amount of ventilation on top and at the bottom. We also have another ROG logo, a customizable illuminated ROGI logo, and the input and output ports at the bottom. Speaking of the ports, we have the power port, a 3.5mm headphone jack, 2 HDMI 2.0 ports, 1 DisplayPort 1.4 with DSC, and 2 USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type-A ports. The USB Type-B port is just the upstream connection to your host device, such as your PC or laptop. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a USB Type-C port with power delivery, which is available on the higher-end ROG Swift lineup. So if you care about that, like me, who also uses a MacBook or a laptop, this is something you need to consider. If you're also running a dual machine setup like I do with a desktop PC and a MacBook, you'll be limited to the HDMI 2.0 connection for your other machine, limiting it to 144Hz refresh rate. I'll have to say though, especially coming from the EVE Spectrum gaming monitor, switching between Windows and Mac is noticeably faster. It grabs the signal super quick, which is nice. Now, even though I don't like the extra leap on the bottom center, it offers some advantages, like having the 5-way joystick and a couple of buttons in an easy-to-access location. And lastly, for our parts overview, in terms of adjustments, this is one of the most versatile ones out of the box. So we have 0 to 120mm height adjustment with a very smooth but sturdy sliding mechanism. We also have 45-degree swivel and up to 90-degree pivot for portrait orientation. Just make sure to tilt it up first before rotating to avoid damage. And lastly, speaking of tilt, we have -5 to +25-degree tilt. So yeah, a ton of options that can save you money by not necessarily having to purchase a monitor arm. Moving on, let's take a look at the OSD settings real quick before we discuss the display quality. As I pointed out earlier, the OSD controls are easy to access and are quite intuitive as well. Inside the OSD settings, we have gaming with things like variable refresh rate, ELMB, and the typical ASUS gaming features like built-in FPS counter, overlay crosshairs, magnification with the sniper options, including a night vision mode, and other miscellaneous tools like timer, stopwatch, and display adjustment for multiple display setup. Aside from that, we have the game visual, which I spent quite a lot of time exploring, and I ended up using the default racing mode most of the time, with FPS mode for Valorant and RTS mode for things like Cyberpunk and others. We also have Shadow Boost, which I'll show you some samples later when we discuss its gaming capabilities, and the ASUS Display Widget Center, which is a software-based alternative to these OSD settings. Next, we have the image setting, and the most notable features here are the uniform brightness, OLED anti-flicker, and clear pixel edge, which we'll discuss later under the image quality part of the review. We also have the color setting, and what I like about this is the quick toggle between different color spaces. We also have input source selection, lighting effects for the RGB lighting at the back, my favorite where you can customize the shortcuts for the joystick, and one of the 2 individual buttons. And lastly, the system setup for the rest of the options, including some screen protection to preserve the quality of the OLED panel, like screensaver, pixel cleaning, screen move, and auto logo brightness. For my preference, I set the screen move to middle, since the strong option is noticeable and honestly quite jarring if you manage to catch it. Basically, it shifts all the pixels a little bit from time to time. By the way, I just want to share that I had to reshoot most of my clips because there was a firmware update that significantly improves the color accuracy, so make sure once you get yours to check the firmware. Alright, so let's finally talk about the image quality of the ROG Strix OLED XG27AQDMG. As per testing, using the Spider X Pro calibration tool, at 200 nits of brightness in SDR mode, which is around 78 brightness, it can output at least 100% sRGB, 86% NTSC, 89% Adobe RGB, and 94% P3, which is not quite the advertised 99% P3, but honestly, this is good enough for me. What I appreciate though is the relatively bright screen, especially for an OLED panel. As per specifications, it is rated up to 275 nits at 100% APL, but as per testing, I even got up to 288 nits at max, again in SDR mode, which is nice to see. I also appreciate the fact that it doesn't suffer from the typical auto brightness issues of some OLED panels, like what I've experienced with the LG C2 that instantly blinds you out of nowhere when dealing with different window sizes and things around that nature. As a bonus, this monitor also has a feature called uniform brightness, which helps a lot in terms of comfort. I take advantage of this when I'm not gaming, like when I'm using this monitor for productivity and office tasks. It makes a ton of difference for eye comfort without compromising much when it comes to image quality. Speaking of image quality, as per testing, there are no visible dark spots on a white background at all angles, and there's no noticeable loss of brightness even at an extreme angle. And thanks to the nature of the OLED panel, backlight bleeding is of course non-existent because the pixels are individually lit. And as you can tell, even though the monitor is turned on, it's completely pitch black. This thing is amazing when it comes to media consumption, and with the glossy panel, it makes it even more stunning, crispy, contrasty, and just absolutely outstanding. Now, I gotta be honest, I haven't tried any QD OLEDs yet, so I cannot give you a proper comparison, but I can honestly tell you that the image quality of this monitor is something you need to experience. The black levels are amazing, both in bright and dim environments. The colors are really vibrant, with superb details and contrast, and just pleasant in the eyes. Viewing angles are on another level. As you can tell, even on this extremely unrealistic viewing angle, the image quality is still top-notch. Now, of course, having a glossy panel, it also has its disadvantage, which is reflections. It is more pronounced than any other monitor that I've tried, including my LG C2 OLED, which is also glossy. However, I gotta say, I'll still take this glossy finish any time of the day over a matte finish because the image quality is just better in my opinion, and I would gladly take that compromise. Don't get me wrong, this gaming monitor is not perfect, but before I share with you the things that I don't like about it, let's discuss its gaming capabilities first, which is also one of its strong points and one of the reasons why I was so eager to switch to this. The ROG Strix OLED XG27AQDMG offers a quite competitive 240Hz refresh rate with 0.03 milliseconds response time. This is as fast as you can get with the WOLED panel. By the way, the panel on this monitor is made by LG, which means it shares the same RWBG sub-pixel layout, which we'll tackle in detail later as well. It also runs in native 1440p resolution and 240Hz refresh rate, which means it should be safe from unwanted artifacts and overheating from the typical overclocking that we've seen in the past. It also supports 10-bit color depth and is G-Sync compatible. Now, I don't have proper tools to accurately measure response times and ghosting, but honestly speaking, this is probably the smoothest gaming monitor that I've tried so far. Granted, I haven't had the opportunity to try super fast gaming monitors like the ones with 360Hz and above, but man, comparing this to my 144Hz EVE Spectrum or even all the ISO-stuff gaming monitors that I've reviewed and used as my main monitor in the past, the difference is substantial. Well, that's to be expected anyway, since this is a higher tier ROG Strix model. But yeah, if your situation is somehow similar to mine, and you're also coming from a relatively older or inferior gaming monitor, like maybe you're still using 180Hz and below, or using a monitor with a VA panel or even an IPS panel, upgrading to an OLED gaming monitor is going to make you happy. Now, the gaming visuals display presets offer a huge role when it comes to image quality and at some levels, competitive advantage. And here's a quick rundown of how they look in Valorant. Now, for competitive gaming, I find that using the FPS mode actually has some advantages. By default, it automatically sets the shadow boost to level 3, which in my opinion is a bit too much, but setting it to off is a good middle ground. It makes everything more visible in my opinion. But this is of course entirely subjective, depending on your preference. Now, here's how the shadow boost looks in different levels on a very dim environment. As you can tell, there's a notable difference, especially with the dynamic adjustment and when comparing the default racing mode and FPS mode. Now, even though this gaming monitor is only display HDR400 certified, I find it good enough for HDR gaming. And as you can tell in this particular scene, it's substantially bright. The graphics are absolutely stunning, especially for these adventure types of games, and just a joy to game with. Asus claims that this is 20% brighter compared to its older brother, the ROG Swift OLED PG27AQDM, which is always a good bonus. However, it's not all rainbows and butterflies. There's one thing that I don't like about this gaming monitor. It's actually not exclusive to this model, but also with pretty much all OLED gaming monitors, and that is the sub-pixel layout, resulting in less than ideal text clarity. You see, even though Asus advertised this as a 3rd-gen ROG OLED panel, it still uses the same RWBG sub-pixel layout, which means it still suffers from the usual color fringing issues on text. As far as I know, this is because most operating systems' text rendering is not yet suitable or ready for the sub-pixel layout. There are various workarounds for this, some are software-based and others are built into the monitor. As for the latter, ROG has a feature called Clear Pixel Edge, which in theory uses an algorithm to reduce green and red color fringing on text and lines. But in reality, as per testing, even with the latest firmware, it isn't the case. Here, let me show you some examples on both Windows and macOS. In this particular example, enabling the Clear Pixel Edge removes that green and red color fringing, but in return, it also noticeably makes things softer or even look blurry. Looking closer using a macro lens, we can get a better understanding of how the Clear Pixel Edge behaves, but to be honest with you, I don't exactly understand how the algorithm works, as sometimes it adds more colors in between to try and soften the intensity of the color fringing. Sometimes it just switches the intensity, and sometimes it also adds more colors on the edges. The result is also noticeably different between Windows and Mac OS. In Mac OS, it is much better, but still results in some soft and blurry edge clarity. Looking at actual words to simulate real-world application, as you can tell, it reduces the red color fringing, but results in soft and blurry texts. In Mac OS, the default setting is noticeably better, which makes me fairly satisfied because I use my MacBook for most of my productivity tasks and just use Windows for gaming, so this doesn't bother me that much. But definitely could bother a lot of you who will use this on a Windows machine. I actually enjoy this part of the testing because I learned a lot. This is why I do this and why I always try different products and not stick to a particular niche. I like it when I learn something new. Anyways, yeah, looking closer, you can also tell that a white background isn't completely white. It's white, red, and some faint green in both Windows and Mac OS. Very interesting. At the end of the day, I would recommend you to turn off the clear pixel edge, and in my experience, your eyes will eventually get used to this. I can say that because I was able to use the 42-inch LG C2 OLED TV for several months. The only reason I had to ditch it is because it's just too massive for the size of my desk and the jarring brightness issue started to get uncomfortable. But text clarity wise, you'll get used to it. Overall, to conclude, if you can get past the sub-pixel layout and text clarity shortcomings of the ROG Strix OLED XG27AQDMG, there's no denying the fact that again, this is one of the best reasonably priced 27-inch 1440p Glossy WOLED gaming monitor right now. With an introductory price of around $699 it's very competitive in the fast-growing OLED gaming monitor market space. The design, construction, and features partnered with a stunning glossy WOLED display are again something you need to experience at some point in your gaming lifetime. And there you have it guys, thank you for watching. Huge thanks to ROG for sending this in. This is actually my first ROG gaming monitor, so I'm really happy with it, and I hope I can test more OLED monitors in the future from ROG and other competing brands, as I really had fun making this video and I haven't felt that in a while. But again, this video is not paid, and ROG will see this video at the same time as you'll do. I'll keep the description below updated once this gaming monitor is available to purchase, especially here in the Philippines. I believe it's going to be available here locally around July, so stay tuned. Oh, by the way, I almost forgot, but ROG also sent the more affordable ROG Strix XG27ACS for me to review, so make sure to subscribe so you won't miss out. Now, if you're looking for a more affordable but decent option, watch my review of the Asus TUF VG27AQ3A by clicking this. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Have a great day guys, you're awesome.